here we are, sat in the Cessna. It's clearly a very old aeroplane, really. There's a lot of gauges, a lot of machinery and bits and pieces that we will explain and go through this morning. So let's have a little look. Down here, you have, first of all, we'll just check that the fuel valve is on. It has an offset and an on. We want the fuel on. Don't have a fuel pump in this because the wings are so much higher than the engine. Gravity will push it down into there, so there's not too much of an issue with that. We want the master and alternator switches on. The alternator is like it basically charges off the rotation of the engine and it recharges your battery. So it's good to have them both on. We've got a key here. It's not as simple as just turning it on like in a car. If we were to try it now, it spins the propeller, but it's gonna stop. There we go. You've got off, right, left, and both. So obviously in cars you have spark plugs at the top of a cylinder, and in an aeroplane you have 4 cylinders. If you were just to have one spark plug in each of those cylinders, should you lose a spark plug, which is quite a common fault, you're then losing about 25% of your engine power if that cylinder isn't working properly. So what they do is they have 2 spark plugs, which are both running on separate electrical circuits. So there's a right circuit and a left circuit, and basically it means that for whatever reason, should one fail or should a whole electrical circuit fail, there is still another spark plug that's going to fire and continue with that power that you've got in your engine. So you want both running. You'll see in a minute. We'll explain a bit more about that. You've got some indoor lighting. We've got a primer, which we'll need, and this helps to inject a bit of fuel into the cylinders before we start the engine and get it started. There's lighting. So what we'll do is we'll put the strobe on. Oh, these were on. Beacon on. Dome lights interior. Pitot heat. We'll stick that on. Pitot heat is this thing. This penile looking thing here. This is it has a little hole at the end, and air comes into it, and it's a sensor that measures the air, and it gives you your airspeed. So it's linked to this. It's great, but bugs can fly in there. You can get mud in there obstructing it if you're really unlucky. But most of all, the sort of main issue is it'll deal with water ingress quite well. But what it doesn't deal with, and particularly as it's a metal object and it's in a cold airstream, if that water ices up. So it's heated, much like the windows in your car that you can heat, or a kettle or something. It's got a circuit in it that makes all this nice and hot and warm so that you don't get ice inside it. So that's what the pitot heat is. We've got taxi lights. We'll stick them on because we're going to taxi. Trim wheel. Want a bit of positive trim. That's really useful, so we're not having to wrestle the controls constantly just to stay in a straight line. You can kind of tweak and adjust it just so that you can take your hands off the controls and the airplane is in like a steady balance, which is a really nice thing and takes a lot of workload off you. Carb heat, so throttle, so full power and off. Mixture. Now this is about how much fuel you're letting into the engine. This can be a bit of a confusing one for people, and it'll make more sense as we go on. We'll get up nice and high so that I can kind of demonstrate to you how this is useful. You got your flaps, which help to change the shape of the wing. It just means that you scoop more. It becomes a bit more kind of parachutey, especially at low speeds. You're forcing air downwards through the flap at the back. It means you can fly slower, basically, and it allows you to sort of operate. You can see this white arc here on the airspeed indicator. We'd only get to the the end of the green, about 40, and we'd start to fall out of the sky. But it gives us an extra sort of 8 or 9 knots of airspeed that we can kind of get into. So you can probably do about 32 knots before you fall out of the sky, which is very useful if you've got a very short runway to land on. Right, we've now got the mixture in. We've got the throttle cracked a little bit. You'd shout clear prop out the window and we'll turn the key. The gyros are starting to stabilise automatically. We've got the radio stack lighting up. We'll have a look at that in a second.